The Biden administration is looking to replace Russian oil with Venezuelan oil, and that became clear when US officials traveled to Venezuela to meet with Venezuelan officials on a potential deal. Now, this is a fascinating development considering the fact that the Biden administration came into office with statements about how Juan Guaido is the real leader of Venezuela, and of course that is not true. Juan Guaido was the figure that the US tried to install as a replacement to Maduro, but our coup attempts failed, right? So that conflict is very relevant to these new updates. However, Nicolas Maduro was open to having these conversations, and it looks like he's even willing to privatize some of their resources to make this deal. So let me give you the details as it's reported by the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times. The weekend's development in Venezuela is welcomed by Wall Street firms, I'm sure it is, and other investors who have been talking to emissaries from Venezuela about a possible restructuring of $60 billion in debt. That's debt that Venezuela has, of course. The regime is offering infrastructure concessions, oil and gas reserves, and asset privatizations while pressing the investors to coax the United States to consider lifting sanctions. So in return for these resources, Venezuela is hoping that the United States will lift sanctions that were implemented against it by the Trump administration. To give you more information about that, the United States broke off diplomatic relations with Maduro and closed its embassy in Caracas in 2019 after accusing the leader of electoral fraud. The Trump administration then tried to topple Maduro's government by sanctioning Venezuelan oil exports and the country's senior officials, and by recognizing the opposition leader, Juan Guaido, as Venezuela's lawful president. No one voted for Juan Guaido. It's not like there was an election and Juan Guaido was like the rightful winner of that election, and the US is supporting him as a result of that. There were multiple failed coup attempts, and that was disastrous. And we should be critical of the United States for attempting to do that multiple times. Now, lifting the sanctions is something that Venezuela clearly wants. So lifting the sanctions would also put an estimated 23 million barrels of Venezuelan oil that is in storage tanks and oil tankers onto the market. This would add 750,000 barrels a day to global supply in the first month of sanctions relief, on top of any incremental production. So, just to understand what's going on here, the Biden administration is getting a lot of heat for not implementing sanctions against Russian oil. And part of the reason why Biden is hesitant to do that is because, as you guys can already notice, oil prices are already incredibly high, and he's getting battered in regard to coverage regarding gas prices at the pump. And so he's looking for a solution here. There are other solutions that he could turn to, which we can talk about in just a second, but I want to hear what you think first, Cenk.
I think this is a really good solution, even though some people have questionable motives for pushing it. And I think that unfortunately the media will fall hook, line, and sinker for any Fox News talking point. So Fox News has been yelling at the administration about how, and making it appear that gas prices are all their fault. And now CBS and all the other media outlets are asking Jen Psaki 24/7, basically with the implication of, why did you raise the gas prices? Well, they were against Russia invading Ukraine, but Russia invaded Ukraine anyway. You don't think that affects gas prices? Well, if you don't, you just don't know economics. You don't know anything, so you should be quiet and formulate a real question and then ask it, because you apparently know nothing. So now the deal with Venezuela would be great for a number of reasons. Number one, you're releasing 23 million barrels of oil, as Anna just explained, from their reserve. That's gonna make an immediate impact. And then in the long term, you restart the oil coming in from Venezuela. That's gonna take a while to catch up. But we had about 540,000 barrels that we were importing from Russia. And that's only because the oil here is being exported to other countries.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? But we can import 540,000 to replace that from Venezuela, so that would solve that kind of problem. But yeah, I know why they're doing it. Chevron is the major US oil company left in Venezuela. if we restart oil distribution from Venezuela to US, Chevron is going to make an unreal amount of money. And those Wall Street bankers that are sitting on $60 billion in Venezuelan debt have tons of power in Washington, so they're gonna push for a resolution. But should we re-engage Venezuela? Yes. And not on behalf of those guys and the corruption, but because we shouldn't have put sanctions on Venezuela in the first place. We shouldn't have tried to do a coup on that country for no reason. It's not our business at all. And yes, we should reestablish relationships for the benefit of the Venezuelan people and the American people.
So look, the fact that Maduro is now willing to privatize, certain things that he was unwilling to privatize previously makes me worry. With that said, though, I want to go back to your point in regard to exporting oil to other countries. So the United States, as we've talked about before, is the top oil producing country, the top natural gas producing country. But that doesn't matter because we don't have nationalized natural resources in this country. Everything is privatized, which means that corporations run everything. And of course, they're going to export our natural resources if they can increase their profits by doing so. Now, the Biden administration doesn't have its hands tied behind its back. If the Biden administration wanted to, under an emergency order for up to 1 year, it could unilaterally prevent these corporations from exporting oil to other countries. But it's unwilling to do that, and I think that's telling.
Yeah, and by the way, we should also add that there's some American detainees in Venezuela. They're trying to orchestrate a trade for that as well. And some of that makes sense. Some of it was probably people
who did the coup or tried to do
the coup.
Yes.
And I don't know if Venezuela is going to let those particular detainees off or if they should. But certainly America wants those folks back. And so they're doing a very rational negotiation here on behalf of both the citizens and yes, some of the powerful, right? And the real answer, of course, is renewable energy.
Yes.
So we don't have to keep trading between Russia, Iran, and Venezuela and Iraq, who we're invading and who we're supporting and who we're getting oil from. You can't turn off the sun and you can't turn off wind. If we had real renewable energy in this country, we wouldn't need any of those countries. No. By the way, again, to Anna's point, we don't need them now. We produce enough oil and gas here in America, but we don't control our corporations. If they make $1 extra exporting it somewhere else, they will. And that's what our American media, owned by corporations, never clarifies for you.
Exactly, no, you're 100%. And just to really highlight that point about renewable energy, it amazes me that this moment doesn't make it abundantly clear to people how insanely vulnerable we are because of the fact that we don't rely on renewable energy. Like the takeaway is, we live in this topsy-turvy world where the takeaway is we're not drilling enough. Again, top oil producing country, top natural gas producing country in the world. We're #1, okay? The fact that anyone makes the argument that we're not drilling enough, we're not fracking enough, blows my mind. It's absolutely inaccurate. All right, and then they bring up the pipeline. The pipeline that Biden scrapped.
Keystone Pipeline.
Keystone Pipeline,
Let's save it for Stephen Moore.
Okay, we'll talk about that later then.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.